Yeah.
I don't know. As I was reading through the first option of the discussions,
Yeah.
I feel like my understanding of it was totally different
Yeah.
compared to what I was reading other people post. So I just wanted to know what exactly was it about?
Which one you are referring to, Quinter?
The option 1 of a discussion forum for module 3.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm saying.
Yeah.
My understanding of that discussion question was, I think, was totally different from what I was reading other people comment about. So I was just wondering.
Yeah. Can you please tell me your understanding so that I can?
My understanding was more of the difficulties that we are likely to face in challenging male what was it?
Yeah.
Male dominance.
Yeah.
But as I was reading people's comments, I noticed that, I don't know, I realized maybe my understanding was wrong. So what exactly was it about?
No, it was certainly in terms of, you were right. We were looking in terms of not only the problems, but also in terms of what are our ideas of overcoming them.
Okay.
Okay. How do we challenge that? What scope is there? How do we take it forward? And if you are responsible for facilitating such a process, what will you do?
Okay.
So it's not only looking at the problems, but also moving beyond that.
The
But
problem.
I agree with you in terms of the posts that are in the forum are do not completely convey this. That I agree with you. I think we are
Okay.
more at a very superficial level. We were commenting it, but I think that's where I would request you to look at my comments. I read all your posts, but I make one comment.
Okay.
So those comments you must look at it. It's not referring to any particular one, but what we should be looking for.
Okay. Okay.
So
Thank you.
yeah, thank you, Quinter. Vera.
But Damo, the discussion forums, normally when you're doing the modules, I think the discussion forums expect that they have questions that we then discuss, not necessarily the same questions that are in the PowerPoint, really. Though they relate, but not really the same.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. So Vera, what are you saying?
No, I'm just saying that probably maybe in answering, people are answering the questions in the, not the ones from the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
But from the discussion, after you've done the module.
Yeah.
And then the end of the discussion at the forum there.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly there are two different ones. I think what is in the discussion sessions are different. They may appear same, but they are different. As you said, it's more in terms of looking at how one perceives that. But I was only looking in terms of answering to Quinter, that perspective can go beyond. Because what you find normally is in terms of sharing what difficulties we have, except in few cases where we were referring to movements that are there. But I think we go beyond that. I think that's what she's saying. Okay, let's begin today. We are now moving into the how do we actually understand gender inequality? Because in the last 3 modules, we looked at the gender concepts around gender inequality. And then we moved into women's human rights, but that's where we find not only in terms of one, I think we also need to look at other gender, where there is a discrimination and deprivation is is enormous, is disproportionate. So we looked in terms of what are the women's rights, and then what opportunities we have. And then we moved into another important one. How are these inequalities and deprivation of women's rights are determined is the concept of power. How the power imbalances create, perpetuate, and reproduce the gender inequalities and deprivation of women's rights. So we look more conceptual in terms of the concepts around gender, in terms of what gender means, what building blocks contribute to the gender inequality. And we looked in terms of specifically what are the rights that women's rights that we are talking about, and then the power. Today, we would look at in terms of how do we actually assess the gender inequality? What are the tools or frameworks that are available for us to investigate and to find out and to have a deeper understanding on the gender inequalities? Because the reason for this is the greater you have understanding on the intricacies of the gender inequality, it is helpful for us to take action, what type of action that we can take. So therefore, the context that we need to keep in mind so far is our conceptual background, conceptual understanding in the last 3 modules that we were able to establish, we try to able to establish around gender concepts, women's human rights, and power. And then look at in terms of today, how do we understand this? What inequalities exist, gender inequalities exist. So for that, what we are saying, there is a gender analysis is a tool that is used to enhance our understanding so that it helps us to achieve gender inequality. As I said, if you know in terms of how the gender inequality is perpetuated, what are the causes, what are the processes of gender inequality, then we would be in a better position to act on those, and so that we will be able to achieve the gender inequality. So therefore, we need to look at in terms of, if moving forward, in terms of for us to put this gender equality on ground, then the first step is in terms of analyzing the gender. So analyzing the gender is to understand what inequalities gender, both women, men, and other gender are in a context, and addressing those inequalities and discrimination, and integrating gender perspective in all policies and programs. So this is the main in terms of how do we take that. For you to ground, then you need to make an assessment of the gender inequality in a context wherever you are working. It will be a village, a group of villages, a community, or maybe a province. Wherever you are working, for you to understand how does the inequality exist. So for that, understanding it, addressing it, so that it becomes integrated into the policies or programs that we take. So therefore, if we don't do a gender analysis, because we have been doing it in different ways, a situation analysis, there is a very possibility that we may overlook what are the differential needs that the women and girls have. So we need to locate within this the significance of gender analysis, because it is located within our aim for gender equality. How do we look at the gender analysis? As we said, that it is more to understand in the context how the inequality exists. So it is a tool. There are different tools that are available, which helps us to understand if, how, and why issues exist. What type of issues are there? How do they exist? What impact it makes on women, men, and other gender differently and inequally, and also what options exist. So it is more to understand within a context how the inequalities exist and what potential it offers, or what opportunities that it has for us to take action on. So these issues are around the roles and responsibilities of different gender, access and control over resources, power, participation, and this. These are the areas which it will look at, because when we said if, how, and why issues, the issues are related to gender roles, responsibilities, access and control over resources, including land, how the power is distributed between different genders, how do they participate in decision making. The third one, it looks in terms of why you do at a micro level this analysis. At macro level, you need to look at what policies exist in the government that would look at in terms of meeting the differential needs of women, men, and other gender, and to advocate response for the gaps. So we look at it not only at micro level, at the macro level, what is the response the government has made to the inequalities that you have seen on the ground? And if there are gaps, how do you advocate for? And it looks in terms of disaggregation, because when we looked in terms of, we are not looking for gender neutral data, we need to look at in terms of within the population, in terms of men, women, other gender, and also in terms of disabilities. So, and it needs to look at in terms of the basic premise of the analysis is when we are looking in terms of issues related to roles, responsibilities, and other areas, is to look at where is the discrimination. How do you, for us to challenge that? And in terms of, not only in terms of discrimination, what type of oppressions are there, what type of subordination. This is where the gender privileges, gender stereotypes would come. This is, many of you have mentioned in your posts, this is what we would look for. So for us to understand in a given context the gender inequality, we are saying gender analysis offers a tool. Gender analysis consists of a different frameworks that will allow us to understand, examine, determine, and challenge the gender inequality and gender discrimination. So what are the key elements in a gender analysis? Gender analysis is analysis of gender inequality. So there's a few things that we need to keep in mind. That is in terms of, first, as we have seen, when we were looking in terms of examining the policies, we have to see what are the differential needs of women, men, and other gender in the place that we have. So what are the different needs? And here we need to make a distinction between what are the practical needs, gender needs, and strategic gender needs. Can someone throw what's your understanding on this practical and strategic gender needs? Hello? Can someone share what do you understand by practical and strategic needs? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon, Presentina. Yeah, tell me
Thank you.
what do you understand?
Yes, I would like.
Yeah.
Yes, by practical needs, I intend that a set of practical conditions that women have in the society. Some of the examples given here are related to how they get water, for example, how they cook, how they deal with the hospital, how with the medicine, how they deal with the relations with the other people in the society. It's not complete, but it's almost this what I understood.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Presentina, for anyone else? Presentina, where are you from?
I'm from Mozambique.
Okay. So anyone else? Thank you, Presentina. Anyone else? Share your understanding. Because this keeps coming throughout in the subsequent ones. And once, if we are concerned with gender equality, then these two types of needs are important, need distinct attention. Anyone else?
Hello, Prof.
Yes, Kondavane. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the strategic needs, long-term needs, or needs that can be addressed by long-term strategies.
Okay.
So, for example, education, economic empowerment, etc.
Thank you, Kondavane. Where are you from?
Malawi.
Thank you, Kondavane. Okay, let's move. I think, yeah, partly you touched upon what the practical and strategic needs are. I think certainly in terms of what Presentina was saying is something which is practical, which she was giving example of water. And Kondavane, what you were saying in terms of needs which are long-term, which means they are not easy, they are complex and they require an intensive effort. Let me take you through what the needs are so that we know. As you said, the practical gender needs are related to the roles that you talk about in the society. What is given in the society, what is lacking. That the women are expected to fetch water. That is the role that is assigned in society. So what is that is depriving them? What are the difficulties that is putting women at a vulnerable situation, both in terms of the time that it requires and the associated challenges that women will have. If you are addressing that, that is a practical need. So such needs respond to what is now then lacking. So what borewell is lacking. So therefore, go for boreholes. Or health care is not available at the doorsteps, or in terms of the availability, accessibility. So looking at those, these what are the practical in terms of which is more in terms of how do we improve the living conditions of women or the household, but they do not challenge the gender division of labor. As we saw in on the first module, where we looked in terms of gender division of labor is determined by gender norms and gender roles. So the practical needs only in terms of it only helps to ease the situation in those gender roles. but they do not confront, do not challenge the gender division of labor, gender roles or gender norms. Whereas strategic gender needs are directly related to women's subordinate position. So therefore, it looks in terms of how do you challenge the gender division of labor? How do you challenge the power? Because we have looked in terms of the gender norms and gender roles determine the division of labor, while the gender relations determine the status of women and men, and these gender relations are influenced by power. So therefore, strategic gender needs looks in terms of how are the gender power distributed, and then in terms of what control people have on the resources, both in terms of land and others, violence, and in terms of parity and the reproductive choices. Because one of the things that we looked in terms of this is in terms of the decision making, the control over decision making that rests with men. How does it contribute to women's subordination? So in a nutshell, what we need to look at in terms, the practical gender needs to only look at in terms of how to ease the situation in terms of the roles that they are performing, what difficulties they confront, and how do you ease that difficulties through provision of measures. While strategic gender needs attempt to challenge the existing status quo in terms of the rules, in terms of norms, in terms of power relations that exist between women, men, and other gender. So this distinction we need to be, both are important, but at the same time, what we need to look at is that unless we attempt to challenge and address strategic gender needs, the gender inequality is incomplete. This understanding we need to have. So we need to come back in terms, keep this distinction, and then look at in terms of how do we balance that? Because I would certainly say that practical gender needs are as important as strategic gender needs. But we cannot compromise one over the other. Both are important. How much you balance, what type of strategy you will have. So that you would enable to ease the situations for women in terms of the rules that they have got, while you also attempt to challenging that gender division of labor, those roles, those relations. Is that clear so far? Have I made it clear? The distinction between practical and strategic gender needs?
Yes.
Feeble, is that clear? Yes, Jahrul ji.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you, Ramu. At first, I'm sorry for this next session. I did not attend the session because I was very sick the next week.
Okay.
So now I am better than
Okay.
previous day. So this session is very clear.
Okay.
What is the difference of practical needs and strategic needs? So thank you. Damu.
Thank you, Jahrul ji. Who else? Someone else was also sharing. Can someone say how clear is it? Clear, or do we now see the distinction between the practical gender needs and the strategic gender needs? Prasentina and Kondwani, let me start with you.
Yes, I'm more clear.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Kondwana? Kondwani? Okay, so therefore we need to look at in terms of the one of the elements, if we have done gender analysis, is in that given context, how are the needs different among men, women, and other gender. And those needs we need to look at from practical and strategic needs. So it is only not talking about women, but it is also talking about men as well as other gender. So the first one is that we need to include understanding the differential needs that exist. The second one is the roles and responsibilities between women, men on the division of labor, access to and control over resources, and decision making. These are three significant ones that we need to look at. What roles and responsibilities are distributed between women and men in terms of the division of labor, decision making, and access and control to resources, to services. So these are three in terms of that we need to look at in terms of how is it distributed and why is it so. The third one is whatever are the roles, responsibilities that we have seen, what are the structural barriers? What are the structural causes? What are causing this that keep men and women discriminated? How do they, if there are equal opportunities, how are they participating? How are they benefiting? So therefore, the needs, the roles and responsibility, then we need to look at what are the barriers or what are the causes that reinforce these differential treatment. The fourth one is we are looking in terms of how diverse is the situation between women and men in all relationships, in all spheres. We look in terms of national policies, what priorities, what strategies they have in terms of the reducing the gender inequality and realizing human rights. Because are our existing policies contributing to decreasing the inequality or they reinforcing gender inequality? By nature, gender, the policies need to meet different needs, but in practice, they are not gender neutral. Because people who occupy the positions are all also come from the same culture and societal fabric. So therefore, we need to gender analysis need to look at in terms of how the policies are they contributing or restricting gender equality? And lastly, in terms of what is the civil society, how active is civil society in terms of the particularly on gender equality and influencing the state. Are they vibrant? Are they docile? Or do they may be there, but do they consider gender equality on their agenda? Are they not? So these are 6 elements that any gender analysis must have. If you say that you have done a gender analysis in a context, it should have understood, it should have analyzed what are the differential needs that exist. It need to look at in terms of the gender roles and responsibilities in terms of the division of labor, decision making and access. It should look in terms of the institutional barriers or structural causes. It should look at how diverse is the situation of men and women. How are the policies contributing or not contributing to gender equality? Lastly, is there a civil society voice in the context that foster gender equality? These are 6 elements in any gender analysis that one should see is included. Okay, are we clear so far what is the gender analysis? It's an analysis of gender inequality. And we looked in terms what are the key elements that a gender analysis must look at. We said how is it useful? We said it is useful for understanding gender inequality in a context so that you can address them and integrate into your policies and programs. And we look at what are the key elements in gender analysis. We said we need to look at differential needs of women and men and the other gender. It should look at gender roles and responsibilities. It must look in terms of what barriers exist, what diversity that is prevailing, and how do we look at in terms of the policies and programs, and lastly in terms of society. Is that, and we have also seen in terms of when we say differential needs, we said it's very specific to what are the practical needs, gender practical needs and gender strategic needs. So we made a distinction in terms of what practical gender needs are. Practical gender needs are more related to the assigned societal roles that ease their situation, while strategic gender needs challenges the division of labor, gender norms, gender relations. Is that clear so far? Before we move to the frameworks. Hello?
Yes, it's clear.
Yeah, printer. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ruth. Okay. Such as ethnicity, culture, age, and social class. Vera, can you look at what is this? Elements of, when you say social variables such as ethnicity, culture, age, and social class.
Yeah. I think those are also some of the elements that we look at. How ethnicity plays a role in gender inequality. How then culture plays a role. How age also plays a role, and even just the social class plays a role for inequalities. Sometimes you will find, for instance, that women who are a bit empowered would not experience certain inequalities like women who have not gone through empowerment, you know? And you'll find, like, for the new age right now, there are things they would not undergo or tolerate to be seen as gender inequality, while those who are older actually look at them like normal, you know? These roles that we keep on talking about, the young generation, they don't draw those lines. They don't have those lines that, you know, like a woman has to be, you know. You'll find if it's a man and a woman in a relationship, you'll find the young generation, they expect that when we go to work, or we go, you know, when we go to work, we come back, all of us have a role to play in the house. You know, you can actually come for paternity, you can be home for paternity leave, you know, and you're expected to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah.
Thank you, Vera. I think, thank you for reinforcing that. This is what I was meaning in terms of what are the structural and institutional barriers. So all that you have said, culture is a social structure barrier. So in terms of social class, before I come to Mary, Ruth, can I understand when you said appreciate this slide as though as Ruth, can you please elaborate your point? Okay.
Ruth wants probably that you share the PowerPoint as you teach.
Yeah, it's there, Ruth. I have shared it in the WhatsApp group. I think yesterday I did, so you should have been, it should be available with you in the WhatsApp. Okay, let's move. Mary and Helena.
Hello, maybe to help Ruth,
Yeah.
if you're using a handset, it may be difficult to access the slides. So what she should do is download them in her phone and save them, then have them along as you teach.
Okay.
She can minimize your screen and look at the slides.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Helena, for supporting that. Thank you very much. Okay,
Yeah,
let's.
good afternoon.
Yes, Mary.
Yeah, and I'm just following up on what Vera said.
Okay.
I'm finding like currently now in Kenya, let me take just Kenya. In Kenya currently, we have very many cases of femicide among younger couples.
Okay.
Yeah, like every time a woman has been killed by her husband, and you can see they are young people, they are both working, they are both, like femicide is affecting more the middle class even than the low class people in Kenya.
Okay.
And what Vera is saying has just like struck me. It's like, do we have men, younger men? Do we have younger men who are married, but like they are feeling like their space is being taken by women? They are feeling insecure.
Okay.
They are feeling like their power is being removed from them. And so they are now resorting to, this very brutal violence, you know, just like killing women, like, yeah. Just the other day I had a young woman who came to me. She has just finished her PhD. And the moment the husband has also done PhD. But when this woman did the PhD, her husband has divorced her. Yeah, and this is somebody we are feeling like a man with a PhD is like, this is somebody who is empowered, he's knowledgeable, he knows.
Yeah.
You know, but you find him just behaving like, okay, I don't want to use primitive. You find him just behaving like a man who has not gone to school.
Yeah.
Because he told the wife, now that we are equal, I don't think I can live with you.
Yeah.
So the whole issue about it goes beyond education.
Yeah.
It is socialization. It goes beyond.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you get some people you think are a bit high. They are just doing the same thing. And in Kenya, I'm so worried about the femicide that is going on. Just the other day, a manager at Price Cooper, it's one of the biggest finance institutions.
Okay.
He killed his wife.
Yeah.
Just within this month, yes, he killed his wife. So you start wondering, this is somebody like he's economically okay, he's driving the best car, he has bought houses, but he has killed his wife. Yeah.
Thank you, Mary, for clarifying. And sorry, Ruth, I think I was a little, I did not recognize that. Thank you for pointing it out. Yeah. Can you see now the slides?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. From now on, let's move forward. So let's move from our own understanding in terms of what a gender analysis includes to what are the frameworks that are available. There are some frameworks that are available, and you have a detailed description of many frameworks in the module. But in this discussion, we are focusing on a few. One, which is these are commonly used frameworks. The one is in terms of social relations approach. This is by Naila Kabir, and there are three things that are important here. One is in terms of the social relationships. The second one is institutional analysis. And the third one is the structural causes. So we know in terms of when we looked in terms of power, power exists in social relationships, and society exists because there is a fabric of social relationship. So therefore, if you have to understand gender inequality, the first is one component that includes is how are the existing relations exists. How are they exist in terms of the positioning of women, men, and other gender. The second one is how are the institutions maintaining it? What procedures, what rules, what conditions that the institutions have in terms of their own policies, strategies, practices that would reinforce these relationships. And the third one is what is causing this? What is causing, what is influencing institutions to perpetuate the existing gender relationships? Is a threefold, because when we looked in terms of the relationships is between men, women, and others, within the family, outside the family. When in terms of institutions, it starts with from family, household, community, market, state. And then how does this interface between institutions and social relations exist? How does it, what causes this? So these are the three aspects a social relations approach would look at it. So therefore, it's a comprehensive in one way, but it also has got its own limitations. What are the strengths of this? Because you are looking in terms of the three dimensions of gender inequality, in terms of relationships, institutions, and causes, it provides you a comprehensive understanding on the inequality in terms of what exists in terms of one of the things that we looked in terms of the intersectionality. So the social relations exist in terms of the intersectionality. It could be in terms of how we looked in terms of the inequality and discriminations are expressed in different forms, different contexts. So we know it could be by gender, it could be by age, it could be by location, it could be by your ability, or it could be by your position in terms of whether you are living with HIV, AIDS or not. So these are intersectional dimensions of oppression or discrimination. So when we looked in terms of social relations, which are determined by this intersectionality, and the institutions that maintain this and the structural causes, you will a comprehensive picture of the inequality that exists. So it looks in terms of the concentration is more on the structural causes. How are people, how are women and other gender are marginalized? What has made them to be powerless? We knew that everyone has got power, but we also saw that most often it is not being recognized. So there is an inherent socialization that they are powerless. So what contributes to this? The social relations framework helps us to look at this. It looks in terms of interconnectedness of social relations and the institutions and other groups. So this way it is an approach, it is a framework that offers us a better understanding on gender inequality in a context. However, its limitations are because you can do it, you don't need to do it in going to people and then because people who have got detailed knowledge of the context can do this analysis. So therefore, there is every chance that the voice and experience of grassroots groups or communities may not be included in this. And there is also, in terms of when we select institutions, it's not that there are clear boundaries to this institution. When we said family, household, market, community, and the state, they're not mutually exclusive. There are interface between these institutions. So therefore, how well you would understand this overlap of institutions is a big question mark in terms of your own ability to do it. So therefore, it's one framework that allows you to give a comprehensive framework of inequality, but at the same, it also has got limitations. The reason of giving both its strengths and weaknesses is how do you overcome the weaknesses and how do you strengthen the opportunities that it has got. The second approach framework that is widely used is a Harvard Gender Roles Framework. It has 3 dimensions. Its focus is one on the activity profile. This is where we need to look at in terms of how is a day distributed between women, men, and other gender. What type of roles, what type of responsibilities they do. Because we said one of the things is to understand the gender roles and responsibilities. So that the activity profile is what you would use to get this. And there is in terms of access and control over resources. So what are the resources that are available in the household, and who can access and who has control over that. And the last is under what factors contribute to that. So like social relations approach looks in terms of the social relations, institutions, and causes. This looks in terms of the activity profile, the access and control, and the influencing factors. Therefore, it explains the division of labor. As we said, activity profile is in terms of what roles and responsibilities you carry out in a year. So it's an activity calendar. In practice, many of us may be aware, or some of us may be aware, the activity calendar, where you can plot the number of hours in a day that women and men spend on various types of activities required for household. So what are the strengths and weaknesses of this? One is you can understand what the gender issues exist. It makes, because when you are looking in terms of activity profile, you know how much the men and women do in a day on what type of activities that they do. So it's mostly used in terms of agriculture communities for their sustainable livelihoods. But I think what is important is, since it looks in terms of the activity profile and access to resources, which are 2 distinct dimensions of division of labor, it gives you in terms of addressing those gender inequality that exists. The limitations are, it's more in terms of, looks in terms of how do you improve the activities, how do you improve the access, but it doesn't look at in terms of transforming those relations. What inequalities exist, what intersectionality, that's the distinction between the social relations approach and the Harvard. The social relations approach looks in terms of what are these, how the intersectionality impact, whereas the Harvard does not look in terms of intersectionality. It overlooks the power relations and decision making. Who holds it? That's where you look at in terms of influencing factor. Do the influencing factors or structural causes are there in terms of the situational causes? And the third one, which is, can you please unmute CW? The third one is the Moser framework, which is mostly used for planning. But this has got a different dimension. While you look in terms of social relations, CW, can you please mute? It looks in terms of that activity profile from a three different dimensions. One, what type of productive roles, what type of reproductive roles, and then the community roles you have. The problem is, I think some of the posts that you have also made, I was also commenting on. So these are also related to the value that is given. Certainly we see in terms of why the women's work is undervalued as we go along. One of the things is in terms of the value that you place on productive work, reproductive work, where largely the woman is involved in terms of child bearing, maintaining the house, making preparation, all these type of reproductive. The community roles where the decision making is. So the Moser frameworks looks at the distinction in terms of the roles from productive, reproductive, and community role. It gives a specific focus on the practical and gender needs. What are the situational, the assigned gender assigned roles related situational needs, and then what are the strategic needs that confront, challenge the inequality. Access and control, which as we see from the Harvard, and the other one which is distinct here is the policy response. What policy response exists, and what gaps exist, so that you can advocate. So therefore it provides, each of these, if you look at, provides a different dimensions. So therefore we need to understand that no one framework is sufficient. While social relations approach gives you an analysis of social relations and institutional barriers with intersectionality, Harvard gives you in terms of particularly in terms of the activity profile and the access and control, while Moser broadens that in terms of that activity profile from three distinct in terms of the productive, reproductive, and community roles, and the practical and strategic needs, and lastly in terms of policy. So each one has got a distinct dimension, and this, like the Harvard, this also looks in terms of the gender division of labor. So what are the strengths and weaknesses of Moser framework? Certainly in terms of it helps you to understand the inequalities, and so therefore you can plan. So it's usually used for planning purposes, while institutions or government are doing tool planning, they use this tool. It highlights multiple and complex roles that influence, opportunity for nuance mapping resources of power. So it gives another comprehensive picture where you can look at in terms of the complexity of the roles and the responses of the community. But the limitations is it does not fully capture the power between women and men. It excludes intersectionality. So if you go over these three, the intersectionality is assessed in social relations, but not in others. It knows the interrelationship that exists between women and men, how they interact, and so which is the social relations approach looks at it, how the social relationships are intertwined or influenced or dictated. So there are other frameworks in the module you can go through. One is in terms of socio-economic and gender analysis, which looks at community dynamics, and the distinction that it provides is at what levels this exists. It's not only looks at the micro level, at the field level, but also looks at the intermediate and the macro levels, which is at the either province or at the macro level. Whereas environmental scanning looks at in terms of the trends that exist in the environment across all political, cultural, social, economic. Gender at work is mostly used in institutions, and it looks in terms of interrelationship between the gender equality, organizational change. Gender analysis matrix, it looks at the 4 levels: one, woman, man, household, and community, and also looks at how this impacts at 4 levels in terms of labor, time, resources, and socio-cultural. The capacities and vulnerabilities is mostly used in disasters to distinguish in terms of the capacity and vulnerabilities that exists in different contexts. How do you take into account while you plan the response and recovery plans? And the last one is the Longways Women's Empowerment Framework. I think Malawians must be proud of it, because this was developed by the Longway University. It looks in terms of specifically the women's empowerment, from the welfare, access, conscientization, and awareness raising, participation and mobilization. Despite these are used in different contexts, but most often what is used is in terms of the social relations approach, Harvard Gender Framework, and Moser's framework. So far, any questions? Let me take the few minutes and then probably open the floor for discussion. As I said, there are so many frameworks that are available. Martha, I will just come back. Okay, Martha, go ahead.
No, Prof can finish and then I can ask a question.
Okay. So as I said, because no one single framework is complete. Each one is comprehensive in its own way. So therefore, you may have to use these frameworks to your needs, the needs that are required in our context. The second one, we need to acknowledge that all the tools are political in nature, because they challenge the fundamental perspectives, so that you look at in terms of what changes we can bring in. So therefore, whichever framework we look at, whether it is social relations, Harvard or Moser or other that we talked about, it looks in terms of the influencing factor, the structural causes, the institutional barriers. And we know, and all these institutions and structures are all governed by power. We all saw the last thing, that the power exists in all inequalities and poverty. So therefore, when you are understanding the gender inequality through this framework, it is actually challenging the existing structure so that you can bring in fundamental changes. Lastly, in this provides, each of these provides for you an approach, a principle and a guideline. You need to see how flexible you are and how participatory, because it's not that you go and use it, but it must be that everyone who is involved, right from the community to the organization to other external facilitators, that the whole exercise, whole analysis using these frameworks are participatory. I end with that and then throw open the floor for discussion. Yes, Martha, you can now start.
Afternoon, Prof, and afternoon, colleagues.
Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity. Yeah. I followed very well all these frameworks.
Yeah.
Now I am thinking about, as I work for government in the Ministry of Gender Equality, and we are advocating for gender mainstreaming in the other ministries' policies, programs, and projects.
Yeah.
Now, we do conduct, if we have to conduct gender analysis, because the aim is we want to find out if a certain ministry has mainstream gender in its programs, policies, programs, and projects. Now, when I look at this framework, which one would you recommend can I combine to do that kind of activity? Thank you, Prof.
Yeah, thank you, Martha. The immediate thing, I think the best thing that you can use is the Moses framework. The Moses framework gives in terms of the policy responses. It looks, if you look at in terms of Moses framework, it looks in terms of the roles and responsibilities. It looks in terms of differential needs, practical and gender needs, and it looks at policy responses. So therefore, if you are looking in terms at the ministry level, where you are looking in terms of what policies, what strategies, what programs that you would like to have for gender equality, and I would say that Moser framework could be one that will give you this. But however, as I said, it by itself may not be able to give you the comprehensive picture. But if you can combine Moser and social relations, the social relations gives in terms of the intersectionality of this and the interplay of the institutions, where we are looking in terms of the household, community, state, and market. So it will give you that analysis. So therefore, if you can combine Moser and social relations framework, probably you would be in a better position to get the greater and comprehensive picture of the inequalities that exist, the barriers that exist, and the structures that causes, so that you could make your response. Martha, yeah.
Thank you, Prof, for that guidance. Are there some way where one can see an example how they've been used, or any questionnaire that they are using? Maybe where can we find such resources so that one can?
Yeah, I remember there is an Oxfam has made a study of the case studies where these frameworks were, most of these frameworks, may not be all the frameworks, but it's also in your additional reading material. If you can have hold of that reference material, that will, I think you will be able to get a picture in terms of wherever they have used, how did they use, what experience they have got, both in terms of the opportunities that they had and also in terms of challenges they faced. I would suggest that please go through it. I think the details are in the additional reading material that is provided in the module.
Okay, thank you, Prof.
Yeah, thank you, Martha. Anyone else? Who else? Caroline Wanja.
Yes, Prof.
Yeah. Any comments, please?
Not today. I'll follow.
Okay.
I've been quite I've lagged behind a bit. I was in another class.
Okay.
But nevertheless, I'm here. I'm catching up. I'm following. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you. Thank you, Caroline. Any comments, anyone? How do you see these different frameworks?
I don't know whether I'm right. Huh?
Yes, Mary.
Yeah, but I'm seeing like the Harvard one. Harvard just captures the roles, yeah?
Yeah.
Like who does which role between men and women.
Yeah.
But now, how do we use Harvard analysis, maybe for decision making? Because it does not capture like causes. It leaves it out. It's just like maybe going to the farm, it is women. Maybe control of land is men. Now, how do we come up with a conclusion while using that analysis?
Yeah. See, it looks in terms of two significant ones. It considers two significant ones. One is in terms of the gender roles and responsibilities. That's where you look at in terms of the activity profile. That's where how comprehensively one makes. But it gives you an opportunity to really go to the details. In a day, how are these, how are men, women, in terms of, even in terms, not only the adults, even the children, what do they do in the day? How many hours? So it looks in not only in terms of what they do in the house, but it also includes what they do in the farm. So that's one in terms of the roles and responsibility within the household. The second one, it looks at very specifically where the access and control over resources. That again is another important dimension of the power relations. So therefore, you look at in terms who has access and who has got control over different resources that is available, both in terms of the land and other resources. So that gives you in terms of how the power exists and how those power dictates the relations between men and women. So these are the two which you look in terms of, can give you how to look at in terms of, both in terms of the, how do you look at the power, transforming the power relations in terms of roles, responsibilities, and access. That's what how the gender would look at it. And people, they may say in terms of these are the three core one. If you can address, the gender inequality is on the move. Mary, any rejoinders?
No.
Yeah, okay. Anyone else? Doreen, can you share the study in your Solomon Islands?
Yeah.
Yes, Doreen, yeah.
Okay. The study is on some findings within 2 different provinces in Solomon Islands. They do individual deprivation measures on how to find different gender inequality or roles that people play in the community. So key initial findings at glance of one is intersectional inequalities, joint deprivation inside the household, responding dimension ranking, food security and gender and resilience, gender health and COVID-19 in 2 provinces. So those are some of the key initial findings at glance. I don't know. Do I make sense or?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Thank you, Doreen.
Yeah.
Vera, is Vera there? Vera, I saw your comments useful. Can you please share it in the group?
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I think you were
I can post it.
you are making you are making a comparative account of different frameworks and then very specific to Longway and Longway framework. Can you please share your thoughts? And you were also talking about Harvard.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll share it on our WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Vera?
Well, I was just I was going through the different frameworks, and one thing that is for sure is that they normally change, you know, like any framework, they change, you know, according to, there are those that actually look at, you know, they look at the change in time, some look at the change in maybe the social economic activities, some will also change according to probably maybe the weather may affect, you know, like climate change may affect an analysis, you know, so it gender analysis can never be static. It's something that we must recognize that it changes, and the different frameworks, for instance, their limitations kind of overlap one another, or they kind of, you know, you can use them simultaneously, just like you said, for intersectionality.
Yeah.
So that you're not only using one to base your arguments on. Yeah.
Thank you, Vera, for very well said. Anyone else? Cynthia, any input today? You are silent today.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I've been listening today. I came in late, but I've been listening. Okay. And I'm learning a lot. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Hey, I'm juggling between 2 courses also, but it's thank you. That's all I can say. So for today, I'm just listening. But what I would want to say, I know it might be a little bit out of what you're doing today, but I saw the video clip about a child being flogged, and maybe, I don't know whether she died. But what I'm saying, those within that region, whether it's happened in Kenya or Congo, please follow that up. It not only violates her right, it's if that young girl died, it's a murder case.
Yeah.
So it has a multiple layered implication. It is so complex that is in this day and age. Things like that still happen, and a community watches without doing anything. Where her parents? Where is the mother? Because when you're talking about analysis now, if those who are really at the center of the desired change still keep quiet, it will be difficult for somebody coming from outside to effect the change they need, or even analyze or do whatever. So that's my take, relating what we are listening to today with that particular video clip. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. I think for raising that, I think, see, keeping silence to violation is also a violation. We need to look at it in terms of how soon we would be proactive to, in whatever way, in wherever circle that we have, we keep raising these issues and asking for a response. A response in terms of how do you stand up against injustice? I think is an area that probably we need to keep pondering and then see, questioning ourselves, where are we in our own response to that? Yes, Vera? You want to say something, Vera?
No,
Okay,
no, I don't.
Okay. Your thing came up on the screen. So anyone else? Let me show those who have not so far. Dorcas, Dalius, Etelvina. Any comments? Francisca.
Nothing so far, Damu.
Okay. Can you comment on the input? What do you feel? What's your takeaway, Francisca? Catalina is there. Catalina, I did not hear her today. Helena. Kundwani. Millicent. Yeah. Who is that? Kundwani, yeah. Go ahead, Kundwani.
I'm saying I'm in the listen, I'm following the conversation. I have no comment.
Your voice is not audible, Kundwani. Yes, Kundwani. Yeah.
Right, I'm saying I'm keenly listening to the conversation. I do not have a comment for now.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Kundwani. So any quick feedback on what's today's thing? Yes.
Prof, may I say something,
Yeah.
please?
Yes, Carolyn, please.
It's just probably perhaps food for thought.
Yeah.
Yes, and connecting with what Cynthia was commenting about the video shared.
Right.
And today's topic.
Yeah.
Does these gender roles have a play in how much we can actually respond to some of these injustices done?
Yeah.
Considering, I mean, with the discussion we had, you would see somebody's asked, or Cynthia was asking, well, why is the mother, where are the people? And I mean, we were all asking, where is everybody else? Yeah. Does it have to do with the gender roles that you've actually, put aside for, for the different people and what they're doing? and how much can we react to some of these injustices? Is it pegged on the our roles? Is it an actual gender role as to how much we can actually get into some of these things? So it's perhaps some food for thought for me.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
I think they're all connected, Caroline. I think we that's where we need to look at. I often say we need to go back to that the building blocks of gender inequality, because where the gender roles, norms, and gender relations, they all play reinforcing things in terms of what one need to do it, how one need to behave, and one. So therefore, it all is pervasive. So that's where I think the socialization, stereotypes, and discrimination comes. So how much you would accept and allow, because how much you can confront the culture. Do you accept, and within the culture, the religion? Because we are all part of the religion, in whatever religion we may belong to, whatever faith that we would like to practice, and the culture that we would like to be dear to. But where there are injustices, where there is existing practices, existing structures, existing procedures are harmful, are contributing to violations, do we accept that, or do we confront that? And what level we can confront? This is where we need to look at, and what way we can also confront. Because there is no one way. I think what you said, Caroline, is good. I think we all need to look at how do we respond to that in our own, within our own capacity, within our own context, and our own capacity. How do you deal with that? I think is a very critical one that must keep us in the thing. Mary?
Yeah, thank you. Today I had a training with men.
Yeah.
I had a training with men, and I actually thought of how do I do it?
Yeah.
How do I make like men to realize the reality, and how do I make men realize the reality and what gender-based violence is doing? Because a lot of times we come up with like right now they are saying, I don't know, every 11 minutes, is it every 11 minutes a woman is being killed? We come up with so much statistics until like we see these things just in terms of statistics. We don't look at it like these are human beings we are talking about. So during the training, we did the statistics, fine, how many women are dying in Kenya, how many women have been killed, what percentages. But then what I did also, I got the actual women whose hands have been cut off. I got one whose eye was plucked out. I got one whose spinal cord has been affected, she cannot walk. And funny enough, the men cried. And in and in our community, men don't cry. But today I saw men cry. And when I asked them, like, what do you think? I showed them a picture of a woman who was murdered right in my background. I even did a demonstration. And these men now today were telling me, if somebody did that to my daughter,
yeah,
you know, now they were actually saying, if somebody did that to my daughter, I will look for him to the end of the world. If somebody did that to my mother, you know, for the first time, maybe men need to see, not just men, all of us,
yeah,
we need to see these things in practical,
yeah,
you know? Yeah, we need to see like these are real people.
Yeah.
Just saying this number has been killed.
Yeah.
we normally take them to be just statistics and we don't see the reality of it. Maybe it's a high time also we use documentaries, we use everything to give these people a chance, like to see the actual human being talking. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. I think that will be a very powerful one because using it in terms of showing things and then seeking response and responsibility to that, I think is Catalina and then Irene. Catalina, your hand is up.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah. Hi.
I was just thinking about this gender analysis and the gender inequality and discrimination and violence.
Yeah.
There's this long-time friend of mine. Yesterday, she gave me a call. Then she told me she had gone for a retreat, personal retreat. Then she didn't sound like it was something she was willing to go. Then I said, what is it? She told me she has family challenges. Then when we discussed, she told me, do you know that my husband gave me a slap? I was like, what? For it was a conflict, or she was preventing the husband from beating the son for some just disciplining, but slapping a young man. So the slap now changed to be hers. Then in this, I think the husband was just looking for her to get to the wife. So my friend asked the son to step out. But the daughter, who is in college, just in first year, was in the room. So now they started having a conflict, a conversation which was not friendly. Then she was asked, you don't even behave like an African woman. These are all empowered people. They have masters. And the daughter is taking engineering. So later, the daughter was asking the mom, no, I heard dad say that you are not behaving like an African woman. So this is wastage of time. I'm getting my degree. I'll be an engineer, but I'll be expected to sit in the house, cook, or behave like an African woman. So she was just telling me how this statement meant the daughter to be so disturbed by the education and whatever is happening. So she was so sorry for the mom. And then this is just a trauma that is being transferred to the children. So it is a dilemma what we're going to do about this inequalities and subordination and violence. Yeah.
Thank you, Catalina, for sharing. I think this is the greatest challenge. I think we need to look at it because we and around us, they are, I think these are all imbibed values. So how do we break that? Thank you, Catalina. Irene and then Millicent.
Hi, everyone. Mine is just to emphasize on what Mary just said. For us to be able to have men understand some of the injustices that are going on, it is important that sometimes you bring them to the point of asking them, assuming it is your daughter, this and this is happening to them, assuming it is your mother or your sister. So when you bring it closer home, they actually tend to feel it. And so they're able to speak about some of these issues more. I work in a health center, and some of the health issues, you find rape and such issues. So sometimes you'd find somebody would throw in a sentence like, but even see the way she's dressed. And you ask the man or one of the men, and you ask them, assuming it was your sister, do you want to tell me that her dressing should be able to provoke a man to rape her? So sometimes it is when you bring it closer, when they feel some sort of connection to the, can I use the word victim, then they're likely to be more human than when it is somebody else who this is happening to. So mine is just to encourage us that even as we go ahead and propagating gender issues and equality, we need to ask the men and bring it closer so that the example actually makes more sense. Thank you.
Yeah, very true, Irene. You can involve them to, I think there will be a greatest change. Millicent?
Thank you, Damo. Good morning.
Good morning.
Mine is just a question. on social relations approach.
Yeah.
You said that one of the weakness of this approach, it does not include multiple voices and experiences of the grassroots groups within an institution. So my question is, does it mean that this approach just includes the knowledgeable in the institutions, or what happens?
Yeah, you're right, because it can be used by the people who have got knowledge, need not be from the grassroots level, because you may include whether within the institutions or institutions which are local, but who have got knowledge about those things. So it need not, and because you can do it, you don't need to go to the grassroots. You can do it at some place and then do it. That's the danger.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it's in terms of people, you can draw people, like, for example, let me say, you can invite the leaders from the village and bring them to a place where you can have interaction.
Okay.
Yeah. So it banks on people who are aware, who have got knowledge. The understanding is they represent the problems and concerns of people. But the underlying thing is how much they represent is a big question.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Millicent. I think we have to come back. We'll come to the last one. I must thank Priska Upendo, Michela Millet, Helen Apps, Helena, and Shirley for your feedback. Thank you very much. We will look into that. Is Helena Apps there? I would like you to throw a little more light on your feedback. Helena Apps is there? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, what feedback are you looking for?
Because you said in terms of, I'm suggesting the use of different tools to get us involved. Can you please elaborate? Who is Francisca? Can you please mute your? Okay. Helena, can you please elaborate your thing when you said use of different tools to get us involved? Are you?
Did I put that in the chat?
Yeah, you can put in the chat, or in the WhatsApp, or you can share it, whichever you prefer.
Oh, I can't remember putting that up. Sorry.
Okay. No, yeah. You can.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you can say it in the WhatsApp also. No problem, no issue. Okay, you can go back because I wanted to know in terms of what you actually meant, so that it helps for me to consider the. So thank you for this for your feedback, and I would request others to share your feedback. That will be good. So thank you once again, Friska, Misala, Helena, and Shirley. And let's meet on Wednesday, same time, and we will be discussing more on how gender analysis adds value to our work, and why should we meet strategic gender needs. These are two discussion sessions, that Wednesday and Thursday. So see you on Wednesday. Thank you once again for your participation. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Prof. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.